We got lots of options, don't worry. No, just kidding. So anyway, we were in there, and we prayed, and then we say, let's all put our hands, and this is a big day, and there's like, well, what do we say? And so I said, maybe we should say go team, and someone with a much better idea said, how about we say Christ is risen? I thought that's a great idea. I wish I'd thought of that. So Christ is risen. He's risen indeed. Hope is here. So glad that you are as well. How many people here really love Easter Sunday? Yeah, absolutely. I love Easter Sunday. It also, as Dave mentioned earlier, it's also April Fool's Day. How many people here love April Fool's Day? Absolutely. It's a fun day. Hopefully you've had some good ones already. Ian found this, just bringing Easter Sunday and April Fool's Day together. Ian found this slide. Check this out. And you guys thought I would stay dead. April Fools. Thanks to Ian for that. So I do wonder, though, when Mary and the others got to the tomb and found it empty, I wonder if they actually did feel that way. Like, this must be some kind of joke. This must be some kind of hoax. This is so incredible and unbelievable. I can tell you this, they were definitely surprised. Let's read this passage from Mark chapter 16. This is one of the empty tomb resurrection stories. You'll find these stories in all four of the Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The Gospels are the stories of Jesus' life, his death, and his resurrection. A great place to start reading the Bible if you're interested. And what's interesting is there's some different things in the stories, and sometimes there's some ways they're said a little different, but that would make sense. If we were at the same event, we would probably come away, if we wrote it down, with some different memories. We would notice different things. We would have even different interpretations of those. So that's quite normal for the different translations to have some differences in them, but there's some very common things as well. One is that you'll see this idea of the Sabbath as part of this whole story, how important rest is for us, especially in our fast-paced world. It also reminds us that while they rested, that's when God did something amazing. Same is often true for us. Here we go, Mark chapter 16, starting at verse 1. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so they might go to anoint Jesus' body. Gotta love that it's women who get there first. Very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise, they were on their way to the tomb. And they asked each other, I love this, they asked each other, who will roll the stone away from the tomb? They're on their way, and how are we going to actually get in? Good question. They get there, but when they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had already been rolled away. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. Don't be alarmed, he said. You are looking for Jesus the Nazarene, who was crucified. He is risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter, he is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you. That ends at verse 7. I'd stop reading there, to be honest, and thought, well, surely they just go and tell the disciples as was recommended. But what would you do? Would you go and tell people this crazy story of what you just found? Well, they didn't actually. Not in the Mark's translation. Check out Mark verse 8. Chapter 16, verse 8, this follows exactly what we just read. Trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? As you read on in Mark, it continues down this path. People have trouble believing. It's unimaginable. It's hard to get their heads around. And that the same may be true for us today. I love Brian McLaren. He says churches need to be places today where people can belong before they believe. Because sometimes belief follows belonging, follows a community like this. We hope that you'll experience that here today, wherever you are in your life around faith. Sometimes, and we'll see this in this story, sometimes we choose to believe even before we understand. And after we make that choice, God brings understanding. It's really quite incredible. It's one of the things that God can do. However we look at this story, there's one reason that we can be sure of why they were surprised. You see, the thinking of the day, the contemporary thought, the Jewish theology, faith, was that if this was Jesus, the Savior, and they were still trying to figure this out, but if this was, that he could be resurrected, he could come back, but it wouldn't be until the end of time. And so for Jesus to have appeared, to have reappeared, to be resurrected now, this is new. This is shocking. This was surprising for them. This was knowing Jesus in a very new way. This changes everything. Sometimes people ask, so when will Jesus return? Well, this story, the resurrection story that we've just read today, it assures us that Jesus has already returned, and his Spirit is with us, and he's here now. You see, sometimes there's this thinking in the Christian world, and I just think in the world period, where the Christian life is something that we endure until we kick the bucket and we finally get to this place called heaven where life is a whole lot better. And not to dismiss the promise of eternity. My goodness, we hold on to that on a day like today. I put up my hand earlier. One of the reasons I love Easter Sunday is because I'm reminded of the resurrection hope. And I suspect, like many of you, I think about the people who we've lost in our lives. And they feel close today. And that resurrection, eternal promise is so very real and powerful and good. But this story doesn't end there. It's about way more than that. It's about not only having life at the end of our days, but having an incredible life here today. That Jesus can bring that kind of life. That's a part of this resurrection hope and this amazing story. No matter what our circumstances. N.T. Wright, beautiful quote from here around this, from his book called Surprised by Hope. He says, Jesus' resurrection is the beginning of God's new project. Not to snatch people away from earth to heaven, but to colonize earth with the life of heaven. That, after all, is what the Lord's Prayer is all about. The Lord's Prayer that says, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Jesus' prayer that he encouraged us to use was that we would be a part of bringing heaven to earth. That we would bring life to the reality of death. That we would bring hope to this broken world. Good Friday, yesterday, 2 days ago. Seems like only yesterday. Well, we had people, if you were here, we had people after the service running out in the community to share this love of the cross, that Jesus gave us all, that we could give a little bit back to this community. Taking goodies to firefighters and emergency people and going to the hospital, to the mental health ward, going to Wellspring Cancer Support Center, spring clean. There was a tangible way of that song we sang earlier that said, let love invade, let the church live loud. That's what this is about. That's what resurrection is about, that God is bringing life here today. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, the Apostle Paul backs us up on this in a big way. So this is a chapter in a letter that the Apostle Paul wrote to the Corinthians. And in this chapter 15, it's 58 verses. That's a lot of verses. That's a long chapter in the Bible. And 57 of those verses are on the resurrection. Paul goes really hard at this. He says this is core to our faith. This is central to our beliefs, and it all rests on this. And he talks about resurrection after we die, but then all of that, and then he finishes it off with this, verse 58 from 1 Corinthians 15, that says, Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. All that to say that today matters. What we do today matters. That God is here, as that video said. That God is here and alive. So Jesus' resurrection means that God can and does bring life today. And that can change our lives today. That can change our day-to-day realities. It can change our mental state. It can change our confidence. It can change everything. I don't know if anyone here has seen the movie I Can Only Imagine. How many people have seen that movie? It's out in the theaters these days. If you've seen it, it's really quite amazing. It's based on a song that, again, I've said it twice already. I'll say it again. I'm not going to sing it for you because you'll never get it from me singing it for you. But if you Google it, I'm sure that most of us will have heard it because it's been out there for quite some time. It's very popular, and it's really quite amazing. It's by this band called Mercy Me. The way they got it's a really cool story. The way they got the name Mercy Me was Bart Millard, who was the lead singer. When he told his grandmother that they were going to begin a band, she came back to him and said, Mercy Me. In the song, I Can Only Imagine, which the movie is based on, he tells the story of his father having just an incredible change in his life. And he was very abusive to him as a kid. It's really, sometimes it's hard to watch. It's just so real. But at the end, he has a change. And so Bart says that if God could turn this monster, and it really is in this movie, if God could turn this monster into somebody who he wanted to be more like, then it seemed to him that God could do pretty much anything. Friends, that's what God can do. That's the kind of difference that God can make in our lives. And when it happens, it's really, really quite amazing. And it's all part of this idea of knowing Jesus in a new way. We're doing something here this morning on Easter Sunday that we've never done at North Bramley. We're starting a series today. So over the next 6 weeks, we're going to continue down this journey of knowing Jesus in a new way. We're going to look at these incredible encounters of Jesus after his death, these resurrection experiences and encounters. They're amazing. There's a running joke around our church these days where we always say, hey, the next series, it's the best one yet. And so I got to say, this next series is going to be the best one yet. I mean, it's a whole lot better to stand up here saying, this is going to be the worst series we've ever had, isn't it? But the truth is, like, the one after this next series is based on the Psalms, and it's called Keeping It Real. And that might even, but anyway, for now, let's just say that this next series is going to be the best for me. I'll stop there. But we would love to have you join us for us. It is going to be an amazing journey, because when we get to know someone in new ways, and I suspect we've all experienced this, it really is a beautiful thing. And we're talking about getting to know Jesus here. I was thinking about this in light of my relationship with my wife, Katrina. We will have been married this summer. We'll have been married 24 years. Thank you. Thank you. As I said before, I'll say it again, all the applause should go to her. I'm continuing to get to know her in new ways, in all kinds of new ways. But one that's happened over the last 6 months, and it's quite embarrassing to say, but here we go, is for all of these years, almost 23 and a half years, I always thought and said to people, yeah, my wife, Katrina, she doesn't really like to get flowers. I got a friend that's been challenging me to test that theory. And so I've been bringing home some flowers once in a while. And guess what? She actually likes getting flowers. I have to say, I'm still not used to it, to be quite honest. So when I walk into a store to get flowers, I actually feel guilty. Like, I feel like everybody's looking at me thinking he did something bad or wrong, and that's why he's getting his wife flowers. And so, it's a true story. So a couple weeks ago, I'm feeling that way as I walk into the store. I get to the cash, and the lady in front of me, she goes, wow, those are beautiful flowers. I said, I know. And she says, so what'd you do? You're not helping me. But I'm telling you, it's just a simple little thing, but it's been really exciting. It's been really cool. It's been really awesome and beautiful to keep getting to know each other in new ways. Friends, when we talk about getting to know Jesus in new ways, oh man, it's going to be quite a ride over these next 6 weeks. You see, the best news about today, I think, isn't just that we have an opportunity to get to know Jesus in a new way. It's that Jesus already knows us and loves us. And that's just an incredible promise and reality that really does change everything. Tom Holliday, he tells this story. He's a pastor at Saddleback Church in California. And he tells this story one Sunday where he's at the LA Lakers NBA game, and this is in the time when they were in their heyday, and Shaquille O'Neal, if you know basketball, he's this big star player. And he was coming off the court, Shaquille O'Neal, and Tom's up in the stands, and he's watching, and he sees all these kids hovering around Shaq. His nickname is Shaq, and hovering around him, getting his autograph, interacting with him. And Tom's just sitting up there, and I wish I could be a kid again, because that would be kind of lame for me to do, but I would just love to be down there with Shaq and interacting and getting to know him. Anyway, Shaq finishes his autographs, and he walks off the court, and he goes down the corridor to where the locker rooms are, and just before he leaves the stadium, he looks up into the section where Tom is sitting, and he sees Tom, and they lock eyes. And he points, and he yells for everybody to hear. He says, hey, aren't you Tom Holliday? I know you. You're the pastor at Saddleback Church. You're doing a great job. Tom says in this story, he says, it didn't actually happen. But man, I wished it would. So friends, God looks up into the stands of our life, looks us in the eyes, and says, I know you. I know everything about you. And I love you so deeply. I love you more than words can even say. And I would love nothing more than for you to get to know me a little bit more so that we could be in love with each other and share our life together. Friends, this is a kind of love that really does change everything. This is a love that even when we are feeling far from God, reminds us that God is not far from us. This is a love that when we're having the greatest moments of anxiety and fear and worry and stress, that replaces that with a peace that is beyond our comprehension. This is a love that no matter what our past has been, says, that's okay, you are forgiven, I've got a new path in life for you, let's walk down it together. This is a love that when we find ourselves saying, and we all do, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I haven't done enough. This is a love that says, enough is enough. You are already enough because of what God has already done. This is a love, friends, that a grave, a tomb could not contain. It's a love that has overcome death and the worst that life could possibly throw at us. It is a love that is beyond our understanding or even our wildest imaginations. It is a love from the God who made us, who has come in Christ and risen to give us new life and hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. Friends, it is a love that does really change everything. You can just ask Amar and Leah because they're going to come and sing about that love now.